Hey, chiropractic students and recent grads, how successful could you be if you had a resource that clarified your vision, helped you develop a plan, saved you money, time, and heartache, shortened your learning curve, and helped you become profitable your first few months after opening? The Chiro Planner is here. More than just a journal, it's a guide to creating and launching your chiropractic practice in 100 days. It's jam-packed with tools, tips, ideas, action steps, resources, and inspiring quotes from some of the top chiropractors and entrepreneurs in the world today. Think of it as your own personal mentor, inspiring you, answering your questions, helping you to set goals, and advising you on the many unknowns of opening a practice. Go to www.chiroplanner.com today and save 40% by taking advantage of pre-launch pricing.
Welcome to the Chiro Business Mojo Podcast, where we deconstruct the methods, marketing, and mindset of successful business people and chiropractors from around the world. And now your host, Dr. Richard Day.
Bam! I am Dr. Richard Day, and this is the Chiro Business Mojo Podcast. Well, how is everyone out there doing today? I hope you are doing well. I am doing fantastic as well. And today on the show, I have got Dr. Patrick MacNamara. He is a blogger, chiropractor, Christ follower, coffee lover, cyclist, husband, father, podcaster, public speaker, web designer, and WordPress advocate. Woo! After graduating from Logan College of Chiropractic in December of 1988, he founded, owned, and operated MacNamara Chiropractic PA until February of 2005. After selling the practice, Dr. MacNamara has concentrated entirely on teaching chiropractors the importance of internet marketing. And boy, is this a bigger deal now more than ever. It seems like it grows every year, the importance of this. So through his blog, Next Generation Chiropractor, he focuses on blogging, consulting, blog marketing, email marketing, internet marketing, social media consulting, social media marketing, and social media training. He's been featured in Dynamic Chiropractic, DC Practice Insights, and Chiropractic Economics. He's also a web designer for chiropractors, a WordPress consultant, a national speaker, and more. Welcome, Dr. Patrick MacNamara.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here today.
Well, thank you for joining us, Doc. I invite you to jump in and fill in any of the gaps in the bio that I may have missed.
Well, that covered it pretty well. The only thing I think that it didn't address is since that time, I've been a very busy man and have started 3 different companies. The first one primarily chiropractic marketing websites. There's dcrank.com, and then there's bloggingchiropractors.com. And they can just go straight to those websites to find out more about that information without me going into details here.
Well, perfect, and I'm sure we'll touch on some of the details of each one of those as we go through this interview.
Absolutely.
Well, before we get started with that, though, let's go back. Let's go back into the past, and I'd love to hear about why you became a chiropractor.
Well, I wasn't raised in a chiropractic family. And matter of fact, I didn't even know what chiropractic was when I discovered it. Actually, I was heading to medical school. I was thinking about being an orthopedic surgeon. And I was working in a factory on an assembly line, and it was the weekend of July 4th. And they wanted to double the production since we were going to be closed over an extended weekend. So what I did is I put doors on cabinets. So I was putting 2 doors on cabinets, and I typically did 400 doors in an 8-hour shift, and they wanted to double that. So I was supposed to be doing 800 doors in 8 hours. As you can imagine, that's just excruciating on the low back. You're bending over, picking up these doors off the pallet, you're putting them on the cabinets and screwing them in and going on to the next one.
Yeah. Well,
I injured my back and woke up the next morning and I couldn't even move. And it really freaked me out because I was young. I think I was, maybe 20 at the time. And I called my parents and, they said, well, why don't you just go to the doctor and see what they say? And so I went to the local hospital and saw an orthopedic, and he just point blank told me that he recommended I go see a chiropractor, which, as you know, is kind of out of the ordinary. Most orthopedics don't refer you directly to a chiropractor. Mm-hmm. But he shot straight with me. He said, I can give you some anti-inflammatories, muscle relaxers. But he said, a good friend of mine's a chiropractor. Why don't you go check him out? So I called my mom and dad and I said, what in the world is a chiropractor? He's wanting me to go see a chiropractor. And they said, that's fine. We've been before. Go check this guy out. And I was just amazed when I went at what he could do how he did it and the outcome that I had. It blew my mind away that, this guy can just use his hands and help the body heal and restore itself without all this drugs and surgery and so forth. So that led me down the path to discovery on what chiropractic was. And at the time, I was engaged. And so my fiance and I, we talked about that. She was all for it. So we just jumped head in. And that's what led me into chiropractic.
Well, take us back to that moment, the proud moment that you had on the stage when you graduated. You're walking across, you're shaking the hands of the president of the college, and your family's there and your friends, and it's such a proud moment. But you're getting ready to head into the next big step, which is starting a business or going to work for someone. So take us back to that moment and the plans you had for yourself, moving from student into a chiropractor.
Well, I had the good fortunes of, first of all, being from Arkansas. If there are any good fortunes of being from Arkansas, this is one of them. and that is, in Arkansas, you could actually sit for your board 6 months before you graduated. So I planned ahead, and I went ahead and I sat for my boards, and I actually had my chiropractic license 6 months before I graduated.
Wow.
Another good thing was my father-in-law was a general contractor in the area that I wanted to practice in. And so I was able to go over the last trimester at Logan. I was able to go home, do a preceptorship, but at the same time, get my practice, the build out all put together, find the office space, get the sign up, the whole 9 yards. So when I actually crossed the graduation line, I had a practice. I was ready to go. And I was just super excited and stoked to get into practice and start doing what we were trained to do. So, there were a lot of emotions. Obviously, I was super, super excited and at the same time apprehensive because little did I know I knew nothing about business. I knew nothing about running a chiropractic practice successfully. I just knew that I had all the pieces of the puzzle put together for me, and I just needed to step into that and see what happened from there.
So were you successful right out of the gate, or were there some stumbling, blocks along the way early on?
I was absolutely not successful.
Okay.
It was a struggle. I remember many nights laying in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering what in the world have I just done? I'd signed a lease to an X-ray machine, had a lease to the office. I had no clue on how to build a practice. And I struggled. I had a line of credit that kept me going for a while, but, I got the practice up to about $8,000 a month in collections, but that, I was breaking even between personal expenses and business overhead. I was just breaking even, and I had to do something fast. And fortunately I was able to, link up into a business system that allowed me to double the practice within 2 months after coming on board in that system.
Well, and it looks like you graduated in 98, so the internet was not, nearly as robust as it is today. But did you start early on, utilizing internet marketing, or did that come later?
I did. The internet and computers has always fascinated me. My wife actually introduced me to my very first computer. It was an Apple computer. As a matter of fact, I still have it sitting in my office here. It's an old Macintosh Classic. The only other experience I have with computers is I used the Commodore 64 in secondary school, just learning how to do simple coding. But when she introduced me to that Apple Mac, I was just, I don't know, I just totally went full in and tried to learn the system, how it worked and so forth. And my experience with the internet got started way back in, it might have been 92, 93. I don't know if you remember this, but AOL was the big internet provider at the time, and they used to mail out these CDs to get you on board with AOL.
Yeah.
And I'd get hundreds of those in the mail, and I use a bunch of them as coasters and so forth. But, I signed up with AOL. Went out and bought my first 14.4K modem, which that sucks down an amazing blazing speed of 2,400 bauds. You could literally click on an image file, go brew a whole pot of coffee, and then come back, and the image file would still be downloading. Mm-hmm. So that was my experience. When I got into practice, it was about I did get into practice in 99 because I graduated December of 98. I didn't really start developing websites until about around 2000. I started teaching myself HTML code and started building and tinkering around with my own personal website. And then around 2003, I believe, 2002, 2003, I got introduced to TypePad. And if you know who Seth Godin is, he's a real famous marketer. He's still on TypePad to this day. But I started out with TypePad and then discovered WordPress, and WordPress came around in 2003 as well. And built my first chiropractic website then for my practice, and put a lot of time and effort into it, but didn't really see a whole lot of fruit from it because a lot of people weren't using the internet to discover service providers at that time. But the experience of learning how to mess around in WordPress, sharpening up my coding skills, learning more about HTML and also PHP and CSS eventually paid off because I was able to share that information with other chiropractors as the internet became more of the go-to place to discover businesses and how to market our services online.
Well, bring us up to speed, in terms of what you're doing presently with being an internet marketing strategist.
Okay, well, my primary focus is, like I said, 3 different companies. My primary company is Chiropractic Marketing Websites. You can go to getcmw.com without having to type in chiropracticmarketingwebsites.com. But that's my primary focus. It's a full-service agency specifically for chiropractors. And the reason why I chose to stay in the chiropractic profession is, first of all, I just love chiropractic, and I love helping chiropractors. And I went to the very first HubSpot conference that they put on in Boston, and I had a conversation with one of the co-founders, and I was just talking to him, making sure I was heading down the right path. And I told him what I was doing and asked him if he was in my shoes, would he continue down that path, or would he go more broad and start opening up my expertise to other industries? And he said, you know what? He said, I'll tell you right now, you always go deep. You never go broad because you know that industry better than anyone else. And you connect with chiropractors because you are a chiropractor, and you can bring your expertise into that field and really make a significant impact. So that's what I've done with chiropractic marketing websites. I used to spend a lot of time training chiropractors at seminars, and then also blogging about it over at my blog at Next Generation Chiropractor. But the epiphany I had was, I could teach these chiropractors how to do all of this stuff, but when it came down to it, they would simply go home and not implement anything that I was teaching them. They understood the value of it. They understood that they needed to do it. They just didn't want to go through the technical hoops of learning it themselves and putting all that into place themselves. So I spent a couple of years developing a system that automates everything for chiropractors. It doesn't matter what level they come in to our system at, whether they're a startup or they're a seasoned practitioner. Our system can really handle them. And that started back in 2012. Since that time, I've also started 2 other companies. DCRank.com is a full-service SEO agency. All we focus on is just SEO. And then bloggingchiropractors.com focuses just simply on providing blog articles for chiropractors that don't want to sit down and take the time to write the articles themselves. So that kind of gets you up to speed of where we're at today.
Well, let's touch on each one of those. I guess let's start with the chiropractic website. That is a big component. It has been in our practices for a number of years now, and over the years we've changed with the times and improved the look and feel and everything. It's really pretty impressive what you can do nowadays and how nice these websites look. And I've also seen there are do-it-yourself, drag and drop services like Wix and Squarespace. So I guess tell us a little bit about if those are a viable option, or what are the disadvantages or reasons for doing something like what you're offering over one of those other services.
If you're just trying to build a website just to build a website, Wix and Squarespace are fine. If you're trying to build a business, I would 100% say stay away and go with WordPress. And the reason being is even though they provide some pretty intuitive technology, drag and drop design and so forth, you don't have 100% control or ownership of that website. The companies that you're paying money on a monthly basis to provide those services are. With WordPress, if you go to wordpress.org, which is the website where you actually download the software from, don't confuse that with WordPress.com. WordPress.com is an entirely different animal. But WordPress.org, you can actually download the software and then install it on your own server. And when you're building your web presence, you want to make sure that you 100% control that web presence. And WordPress allows you to do that and do it fairly easy. And so that's why I always recommend WordPress. You want to grow and own your own platform using that software.
Now, one of the things I've heard is that there's a real importance in having original content on websites. And I see, I guess, a lot of chiropractic websites that are made by companies for people, and I see duplicate content. So tell me about how that works with search engines and things like that.
You know, there's a lot going out there. Obviously, owning an SEO agency, I keep up with this. So original content is important. But I think where doctors get tripped up is they believe that if they publish a particular article on their blog and it's very similar or identical to another blog somewhere else, that they're going to get penalized with a duplicate content penalty. And that's just not true. Duplicate content penalties come from what's called on-page SEO. There are actually 3 types of SEO, and we can get into those later if you'd like. But on-page SEO deals with everything that has to do with your website, the pages that make up your website, and the content that are on those pages. And, for example, WordPress allows you to put widgets on the sidebar of your site. So let's say that you have a page that is talking about chiropractic, and then you also put a widget over in the sidebar that duplicates that page throughout the site because it's the same content. Well, you're duplicating content and you're confusing the user on what the actual page and link should be. So duplicate content, from my perspective and what I've used throughout the years, always has to do with your own website. Make sure you're not duplicating titles. Make sure you're not duplicating descriptions and the tags and so forth. Now, blogging chiropractors is a good example. We provide blog articles through a subscription service, and those blog articles are fairly similar. The way that we get around duplicate content issues is we only allow one doctor from a particular geographical area to be a member of that service. That way, when that article is published within that local region, Google indexes it and sees that there's no issues because there isn't duplication going on in that community. So that's how you can get past that. Now, if doctors are still leery about duplicate content through that service, we do provide a 100% custom service that will actually write a 100% unique article. But in my experience over the years, we've got hundreds of chiropractors that are sitting on page 1 that are in our services and have used those services for years, and it's actually helped their rankings instead of hindered it. Because we make sure that it's only one member in that community. Also, I'll point you to a website called Scoopit. It's SCOOP.IT. And what this company does is it provides similar services, but it provides it to all kinds of industries. And essentially what you do is you copy a JavaScript code and you embed it in your website. And then you go into the dashboard and you select the type of articles that you want to publish on your site. Well, guess what? The article that you select can be chosen by all the other members that are members of Scoopit as well, and they can publish the identical article on their website without any duplicate issues whatsoever. So it's more of curated content, and news agencies do this all over the place. You can go to one news source and read an article, and you see the same news source over on another webpage. How come Google is not slapping them with a duplicate content penalty? Well, that's because it's being curated, and it's curated in certain areas. So, yes, content's very, very important. But if you're going to talk about original content, when you're setting up the page of your website, make sure that is unique and not duplicated throughout the site. but I wouldn't worry so much about when you're blogging if you're having to take an article from a service provider. As long as you're the only one producing it in your area, you should be good to go.
Well, let's talk a minute about the importance of blogging. I hear I should be doing it, and I hear that it's good for, patients can find out information about, healthy lifestyles and things like that. But from an SEO internet perspective, what is the deal with blogging?
Google loves blogs, and the reason being is it's the currency of the internet. When you actually publish a blog post, you're actually producing an additional link about a topic that obviously can be indexed in the search engines. So the more that you blog about a certain topic, then the more your site becomes an authority in Google's eyes about that topic and pushes you further up in the search rankings. So a blog gives you that ability from an SEO perspective to really help build your ranking. In addition, it also sets you up as a health authority in your area, because you can use that blog as a platform to really promote whatever services, philosophy, or products that your practice has to offer for that community.
Does the frequency that a doc blogs, is that important?
It really is. I do not recommend blogging if you can only do it hit and miss. I recommend at least publishing one post per week. Okay.
Yeah, I know it's kind of hit and miss with most of the folks I know. They'll do one when they get to it. My gut feeling has been, well, you should probably be more regular, but, I'd never have really known. But it's good to know that information. And what about length? Do people, you mentioned Seth Godin earlier. I read some of his blogs, and he can be fairly concise, but he makes sure that he does it every day. Is there a certain length we should shoot for as chiropractors?
Yeah, I really believe there should be a certain length, anywhere between, I would say, 600 to 1,000 words, just because someone in authority, it takes them about that many words to really articulate the subject matter accurately enough. And that's really what Google will look for, is an article that has enough meat in it to give someone that's reading it a good understanding and appreciation of what they just read. When you're dealing with Seth Godin, it's an entirely different story. Seth has been doing this for years. I don't know how long. He might have been one of the first ones that came on TypePad. So think about it. He's blogging every single day. He's got thousands and thousands and thousands upon links that he's built into that site. In addition to that, he's a well-known author and marketer, so he has other people that are linking back to him that is pushing his results up. So he can get away with little short posts that might only be a paragraph long. But when you're dealing with a chiropractic website in a local market that you have competition with, you definitely want to be generating, I would say, anywhere between 6, 8, 1,000 words per blog post.
Well, let's shift and talk about email marketing. That's something that you do as well. Is chiropractic well suited to email marketing? I more associate that with online marketing and that sort of thing.
If we weren't dealing with an internet age, I would say no. But you know what? We're dealing with the internet age, and it's not going anywhere. So if you are not building an email list, you are killing your practice. And I know that sounds pretty strong, but there's a saying that the money is in the list, and it's absolutely true. You can only be in your practice a certain amount of hours per day, but your website stays on 24/7, 365. So you can have a very strong web presence and connect with your readers through your email list. So, the email list cannot be overemphasized. It needs to be the number one thing that you focus on in this whole subject of internet marketing.
Well, how do we grow a subscriber list?
There are a lot of techniques and strategies. First and foremost, obviously, you need an opt-in form on your web page. And if you don't know what an opt-in form is, that's a form that allows you to capture an email address through your website. Now, when I say opt-in form, a lot of people will say, oh, I'll just throw one up and, I'll put it down in the footer section, or I'll put it over in the sidebar, and I'll just say, sign up for our email newsletter. Well, you've got to be much more clever than that. I recommend putting it above the fold. I don't know if you know what that term means, but it came from whenever you're doing traditional advertising, like let's say you want to run an ad in a newspaper. You always want to make sure that that ad is above the fold of the newspaper so that it gets top priority when people are reading the newspaper. They're going to see it compared to one that's below the fold or, on the back of a page. Same thing with a web page. You want your opt-in form to be above the fold. And what that means is when someone lands on your website, they should be able to see that opt-in form at the very top of your website somewhere. And it should have a very clear call to action. The headline is the most powerful thing that you can use. At the same time, you need some type of magnet to draw that person in so that they have, some reason to exchange their email address for what you're trying to provide. So the opt-in form is a great way of doing it. Obviously, social media is a great way to build your email list. There's technology now that's available where you can grow your email list from just texting strictly into an email list. So there's all kinds of ways of doing it. But again, I can't stress enough that should be your number one thing that you concentrate on is growing that list.
Well, once we have subscribers, then I guess my next question is, how often should we contact people? I don't want to fall into a spam, you get labeled as spam and then they never see anything, or we're just inundating them so much that they don't even, they stop reading. And I know that the stats are pretty low in terms of what people open and actually read anyhow, but what should we as chiropractors, how frequently should we be contacting these folks? And I guess also, what should we be contacting them about?
All right, there are different ways of addressing this. I'll try to keep it short and simple, but a very good way of targeting email subscribers is going after the type of patients you want to see in your practice. If you just go broad, then you're really going to frustrate a lot of people, and you're also going to get a lot of bad leads in your sales funnel, so to speak. So let's say that you want to grow your practice off of, I'm just going to pick a topic here. Say that you're really good at helping people with headaches. So you develop a particular email marketing strategy around headaches. Now, the people that come to your website and see that deal with headaches, guess what? They're going to be a hot lead in your sales funnel. And they're going to want to know as much information about that as possible. So I recommend that you set up an autoresponder series that is communicating with them at least once per day. Now, these emails don't have to be long, but your goal is to start building a relationship with that individual. If they don't know you from anyone else, then you've got to build trust with that individual. And the way you build trust with them is you give them valuable content that meets the wants, needs, and desires that they came to your website for. And you also spend time with them through the communication process. I don't know if you're familiar with guerrilla marketing, but they talk about your message in traditional marketing needs to be in front of someone 7 times before they'll actually move forward with that message. In digital marketing, it's more like 3 times that. Your message needs to be in front of someone, a lead, at least 21 times before the most skeptical lead will actually move forward with doing business with you. So you definitely want to set it up where it's laser focused around one particular topic and then walk that person through on how chiropractic and the services you provide can benefit them.
Do you recommend a certain platform for that does these responders?
Absolutely. I will be honest with you. I used to use Aweber and MailChimp, but my go-to, I've been using them for a couple of years, even before Lead Pages purchased them, but it's called Drip. DRIP. I think their web address is getdrip.com, GETDRIP.com. And the reason why I recommend them is they really are all about marketing automation instead of just email autoresponders. There's so much you can do. For example, one of the forms that I use when a chiropractor comes to my website, you got to understand there's all kinds of situations and scenarios going on. I might have a startup doctor that's looking at my website, or I might have a seasoned practitioner that's looking at how they can generate 20 more new patients a month in new patients. So I give them an option. Okay, what are you looking for? And when they select that option is connected to Drip, and it dumps them in the right autoresponder series that communicates to them about that particular subject. That way, the information is going to be precisely what they're looking for, and it's not generalized for them to weed through over time.
Well, we've touched on a lot of things so far: websites, blogging, email marketing, and I'm hearing as I'm listening to this that this can take some time. I guess if we're doing it on our own, how much time would the average chiropractor expect to devote to these things?
Wow, that's a good question. You have to be in the game. And what I mean by that is you have to make sure that your website's set up correctly. You've got email marketing going on, your blogging is going on, and you've got a social media presence. With that said, I would assume if you're really good at organizing and putting together content, that's going to take at least an hour or two of your day devoted just to that, because not only do you have to create the content, but then you have to set it up within all those different platforms to make sure you're getting the exposure.
So part of what you are doing is I guess, a done-for-you service for chiropractors for these things?
That's correct. Absolutely.
Well, I think, when I talk to new docs that are getting ready to graduate or have been in practice a little while, they tend to have more time than patients at the beginning to devote to this. But certainly for the doctor who's gotten busier, it becomes harder and harder. So I definitely see the value in what you're doing to really just hand this off, take it off the doctor's plate, and have it well handled and done in a way that is professionally putting your presence out there online. Because there are so many components. We really didn't talk too much about the social media aspect, but that is its own thing as well, I guess.
It really is. There are so many variables that you have to consider, and you can mess these up very, very quickly, and then you're going to think, well, I've tried this internet marketing thing and it doesn't really work. Well, if you're missing the vital pieces of the system, then you're going to crash and burn. And I will say that a startup doctor has more time than money, so a lot of times it's to their advantage to kind of learn about these things. But to be honest, when you're dealing just with the simple thing of getting a website, there's a lot of variables that go on in setting that up correctly as well. So that's why with CMW, Chiropractic Marketing Websites, we've got plans for startup doctors that start out at $49 a month. I mean, it's no brainer. Get that website up. Get it in the right technology, have it set up correctly from an SEO perspective right out of the gate, and you can concentrate on other things as you start bringing the money in. So having someone do this and take that all off of the doctor's shoulders so that they can concentrate 100% on what they went to school for is a no-brainer in my book.
Well, our audience is made up of two different kinds of listeners: those new docs who are new in practice or soon to be in practice, and then the experienced doc who's maybe been in practice a while, but their business isn't quite where they want it to be. So what single piece of advice would you have for each one of those people?
For the new doctor, I would say that you need to definitely get a system in place for your practice. My downfall was I never had a system that was reproducible that could build that practice from day one. So if you have a system in place that is reproducible, then you're going to be successful out of the gate. For the doctor that's been out there for a while, they may be stagnant. In other words, they may have hit this glass ceiling and they're doing a certain level a month and they're comfortable with that, but they know they can do so much more. They just don't know how to bust through that. My recommendation is take a look around at what I consider there's a concept I learned a long time ago called the town square concept. And in small towns, there's a town square, and there's all these roads that lead into that town square. Just a real quick visual analogy, if you jot down a town square, which is going to be your practice, what are all the roads that are leading into your practice that are bringing new patients? What are all the roads that you're blocking off that aren't allowing new patients to come in? Take a look at those very seriously and make up your mind. If you want to break through that glass ceiling, make up your mind to open up and remove those blockways. One of the ways you can do that is putting in place an internet marketing system that frees up your time and allows us to do the heavy lifting for you to get those new patients in the door.
Well, let's take a step back from chiropractic, and maybe this is chiropractic related, but I want to look at the overall big picture of success and challenges. And certainly you've had your fair share of successes in life, but we tend to learn even more from the challenges that come our way. So can you share with us and our listeners an event or something in your life that's been a challenge that you have had to overcome and the lessons that you've learned?
Okay. I'm going to share two, but they're going to be very quickly. Number one is one of the biggest challenges that I faced was anxiety from a personal level. And I just because of my personality type, there are 4 different personalities, and I'm what's considered a melancholy. And a melancholy tends to be a perfectionist. And I would just worry myself to death. And if it hadn't been for my wife, who really calmed me down and helped me realize that, everything's going to be okay, then, I couldn't have got through some very difficult times in my life. But I had an opportunity and actually discovered a book called Battlefield of the Mind. And I think Joyce Meyer is the one that wrote that. But it was just a very powerful book that helped me really overcome anxious thoughts and how to really get control of my mind and my thoughts so that I could be much more productive with the energy that God blessed me with. The second challenge is something that I'm going through right now. My wife was diagnosed with breast cancer back in August of 2004, and it's been by far the most difficult thing that I've ever gone through with my wife and my family. But, this internet marketing thing has really been a blessing. I never knew why I stepped into this outside of just obeying what the Lord directed me to do. When I went to chiropractic school, I thought I was going to be a chiropractor until the day I died. I love chiropractic. I love practice, but the Lord led me into this. And now I see why. If I had not have listened and obeyed and walked through this path, providing these services, there's no way that I could be able to take care of my wife like I have over this time. And what I mean by that is, as chiropractors, we have limited time in our practice. So I encourage you to think outside the box and look at different ways that you can increase your income, bring other income streams in outside of your practice. If I didn't have these additional income sources, just think, when I was going through the first round of treatments down at MD Anderson with my wife, we were gone for months. And if I was solely dependent upon my practice, as well as I would, I'd be out of practice, and there's no way I could have been able to take care of them. So this challenge has taught me so much about perseverance, discipline, just being faithful to your family, being faithful to the Lord. And if you stay focused to that, then good things are going to come out of it.
Well, thank you for sharing that personal story and thoughts and prayers with you both as you move forward and fight this fight.
Thank you. We really, really appreciate it. If there's anything we need, it's just prayer.
You got it. Well, as we look at success a little more, let's talk about this. Who are your personal heroes?
I could list a whole bunch, but I think you know where I'm going to head with this. I've got a lot of great business minds that have invested in me. I've got some tremendous heroes, giants, if you would, in the industry that has really poured into my life. But I've been a believer since I was 12. I accepted Jesus when I was 12, and I'm going to have to give him the credit on everything else, because if I did not have that personal relationship with him, there is no way I would be where I'm at today. And it's something that I've taught my son. My son is 11 years old, and there's a prayer that I say every morning I wake up. It's real simple, but it's so true. And it's, "Dear Jesus, I need you more today than I've ever needed you before." And it's so true, because this is a brand new day. We don't know what's going to happen. So we need to fall on someone and depend on someone. And he is my source. He's the one that I fall on to help walk through the difficulties, challenges, as well as the successes in life. So I would put him down as my ultimate hero.
Well, in addition to prayer, do you have any other daily habits or rituals or affirmation, things that you say every day to keep you focused on what you are doing and where you're going?
Absolutely. I've got obviously a quiet time. I read the Word, but I also have other books that I heavily get into. There's one saying, I can't remember exactly which book it came from, but it goes, every day in every way I'm getting better and better. So those are some of the types of affirmations that I'll go through on a daily basis. And I will tell you, it is a daily thing. When I go all the way back to the challenge of anxiety, that's something that you have to consistently fight through. So you have to have positive affirmations. And when I say positive affirmations, it's not just simply reading something, but it's actually looking yourself in the mirror and speaking into your life. If you look at it just from a biblical perspective, how did God create things? He spoke things into existence. So if you want to change your life, you've got to speak into your life on where you want to go. So these little nuggets of affirmations that you pick up through self-development books and so forth, grab a hold of those things and speak them into your life. That has been one of the most powerful things that I've done that has changed me as I progress through life.
Well, speaking of books, do you have a single book that you would like to recommend to our listeners?
Absolutely. There is one that has just blown me away. And I discovered it right before my wife was diagnosed. And it's called Essentialism, The Disciplined Pursuit of Less by Greg McKeown. I think that's how you pronounce his last name.
Okay.
But the name of the book is Essentialism. And I highly recommend every chiropractor go out and get that book. It is just a game changer. It'll change your mindset. It just is a phenomenal book.
Well, we will link to that book on our show notes, as well as everything else we talked about on this interview on our website. And before we do that, though, can you tell us what is the best business advice you've ever received?
All right. I'm going to have to give a shout out to Joseph Cordell. I call him Joe. He is, there are a lot of mentors in my life. He is obviously one of my heroes. Joseph Cordell has the most successful paternal law firm in the country. He's based out of St. Louis. It's Cordell & Cordell Law Firm. He's got a lot of other businesses going as well. But when I was in chiropractic school, he wound up being my Sunday school teacher. And my wife and I developed a very strong relationship with his wife and himself, and they took us under their wings and really mentored us and developed us in who we are today. And when I was in chiropractic school, he dropped a book in my lap called E-Myth by Michael Gerber. And, as a student, you're thinking as a student. You're not thinking as an entrepreneur and a business owner. And I devoured this book. And probably the best business advice I ever received was from that book. And it's just a simple sentence, but it makes so much sense. Is when you're in business, you need to be working on the business instead of in the business. And that is only done when you set systems in place so that if you're able to step out of that business for a year and come back and it's still profitable, you've been successful.
Yeah, that's great advice, and that's a great book as well. I remember when I was in school, there was a guest speaker that came in and talked about it, and it sounded so lofty and so far beyond where I was at that time being in school. All of my concerns was, hey, I just need a list. What's the list of things I need to do to get my doors open? And then I guess I had some materials from that, and a year or two later, I stumbled across them and read, through the materials that this speaker had given us, and it made so much sense to me. It doesn't take very long, after being in practice, that you are wearing those hats that he talks about, and you're not just the technician, the doctor, you're a manager and an entrepreneur and so much more. So, great book for anyone who has not read it so far. Very applicable to not only other businesses, but ours as well.
And I just interject, if you can find the first edition, I think it's out of print, but a lot of local libraries, public libraries have it. Go get the first edition. It is so much better than the revised edition. The revised edition is kind of written in third person. The first edition is the very best edition. So, go find that one and read that one. It is just a great, great book.
Well, Dr. Patrick MacNamara, thank you so much for taking the time to spend with us today and share all of your insights into web marketing, SEO, email marketing, and beyond. Can you go ahead and give the websites of the best ways for people to contact you and find out more about what you do?
Absolutely. First of all, it's been an honor and privilege to be here. I greatly appreciate you having me on as a guest. I don't take that lightly. But the doctors can connect with me at any of the websites that I mentioned earlier. Hopefully you'll put those in the show notes. But if not, it's chiropracticmarketingwebsites.com. dcrank.com, bloggingchiropractors.com, or head on over to my blog at nextgenerationchiropractor.com.
Well, we definitely will link to those in the show notes page, along with everything else we talked about and the books mentioned. So thank you once again for being on, and much success to you in your life.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening to the Chiro Business Mojo podcast at www.chirobusinessmojo.com.